Good morning, YouTubers, my viewers, and I appreciate all 2,000 of you. Our channel has grown nicely in the last year, and I certainly appreciate all the new subscribers here in the last couple of months. Greatly appreciated. So the best thing, once again, you can always do for a small channel, if you find this information interesting, is subscribe and click that bell. Anyways, let's get on with it, guys. Today, the importance of service on your MEI validators. This is a green label, 24 volt model, so it's an AE2602. This one came in for service. This was from an outdoor location such as a self-serve car wash, and they really take a lot of abuse from the heat, from the dry climate, from the wet climate. So this one here, I don't know if you can tell, it's got some really bad belts, and this is most likely why it stopped working. So what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild this one from start to finish, and first we'll dissect it. We'll take it all apart, and I'll show you the fine points of rebuilding. We'll change some capacitors, and we'll clean it up, put some belts. It should work. I normally test them, but I don't want to wind these belts up any further than they already are. They have little strands, and they're kind of hard to get out when they get wrapped around the wheels and the tires and the motors. So what let's do, let's take it apart now, and I think I'm confident that this probably works as far as no bad sensors and things. So we're gonna take it apart, clean it up, and we'll check it on the end, and we'll see if we were right. And by the way, guys, this is how we like to receive them. No bezel, no bill box. We have plenty of those to test them with, plus you save a little money in postage. So anyways, let's get on with it. We'll disassemble. See if I can keep in the center of the screen here. I'll do my best. Back out here a little bit. Okay, what I normally do, guys, is I loosen the board, there's 3 small screws, and guys, if you don't do this every day like some of us, save all the hardware, and that way at the end you'll know if you are short one or have an extra. Alright, so we take off the lower slide-in transport. The board, sometimes if they haven't been apart a lot, these little wires can be a little tough to get off, so you might need a small straight slot. As you can see, we've got the wires here, and they go to these 2 spots where my 2 fingers are, the white plug-ins. So you set the board aside so it doesn't get damaged. We're going to change the capacitors in that, and we do that always because they're cheap, and even if they're good, I'll show you this screw here. You could put 2 in, but really it was told by me that if this hole gets a little loose, gets worn out, you can always use the second side, but they come out of the factory with 1 screw, so don't think you're missing one, and it is a little bit longer. Okay, now this style here, as you can see, does not have the clips on the side. Okay, I'm going to show you. This just kind of snaps out like so. We can put the case aside. We're going to wash that. Let me just show you real quick. The older styles have these little clips here. And what you need to do it's kind of tricky, and I can't take this apart now because everything's still in it, is you just push that tab down. You have to do both sides. You have to hold it. It's going to take you a time or two to get proficient at it. Once you realize you have to hold it in 3 spots with only 2 hands. Now we're going to expose the lower sensor, okay, by the 2 screws that go into here. My fingers are, okay. Expose, this is the lower sensor. Be careful in removing. It's a waterproof deal, so the rubber kind of holds it in, but there's no more hardware as far as screws. Now we're pretty confident that this is good. We clean up these lenses a little bit. Here are your lights. Here are the sensors to start it. So we're going to put that aside, put this aside. We're going to put that in the wash tank. Now, what I like to do here is I take all the belts off. You release the tension here. Okay, take it off. Now, these rollers, they just kind of pop out. Okay? And the reason they don't come apart is because they have tension on them from the belt. Okay, that's the big belt. Here's the lower belt. That just pops off too. We can throw away any of the rubber because, now this is original. See that little dot on the top up there at 12 o'clock? That is an original MEI tire. Okay, the reason I know that it hasn't been changed is because we don't have the rollers, and I don't even know how we would get them in. It's probably with a machine, and a lot of times these are so stiff I have to cut them in half with a razor blade and take them apart. Now see, I have this roller, it should fall off of there, but with that little piece of rubber holding it, you kind of have to fight it. Now, see how that piece is still in there? Well, I'd like to take those out because what it did is it just broke off. Okay, now this is not as easy as it may seem, so I get my probe out. And hopefully without putting a hole in your finger like I've done. Alright, so there I got it out. The hole is empty, and when I put in the new tires, you'll see that that hole, I think originally they thought that that wheel might turn, but it's not gonna. It's tight enough rubber. So we take the spring off from the tensioner. Comes from that little post. Now this here got a lot of dirt. We can definitely tell it was an outside machine. So now what we're going to do here, being as this belt is kind of wound around, make it easier, we're just going to cut out what we can. It's got little pieces of fiber holding it together, but what has happened probably with this belt to cause it to come apart is you see all the black spots on the wheels? Well, that's pieces of belt that have actually worn when this has become stuck, and you see all the little strings and fibers. So anyways, we're going to clean all that stuff off camera, guys, so we don't bore you. Yeah, look at this. That's all pieces of the belt. So anyways, that would not have been working too well last spring. Now this is a little bit, what I normally do is I take off the stacker because we want to expose, there's going to be a ton of dirt under there, and they have these little plastic, little push on, lack of a better term, fasteners or nuts. Okay, they come off pretty easy with a straight slot screwdriver. you push them one direction because they're not perfectly round. In other words, let's see if I can show you on camera here. Let's say this one. I push it over to where I can get up under it. Okay? Makes it easier. And you can get these off without breaking them. You might break one to start with, but okay, so now what we do is I have my power supply hooked up. So I can cycle this and get this in the up position. So what I do is I just have a 12-volt power supply, have a special little plug, and you can also kind of test the motors here with this. See what happens? So now I can get the stacker plate off. That's going to be washed. Look inside here, guys. I still have it hooked up. I want to show you one more thing. But see all the dust, dirt, lint? That's got to be cleaned. It's got to look, you know, as close to new as you can when it goes back to the customer. So anyways, we're going to run this stacker and see how it sounds. It actually sounds super smooth. Alright, put it back in the down position so we can get our brush, clean it up. Now we're going to run the transport motor, which is the other two-prong plug. And this sounds good too. I kind of look, make sure there's not a wobbly wheel. I've come across a bent shaft before. So anyways, we're going to give this a good cleaning. And then we're going to get all the parts together. One more thing I'm going to show you here, how to take the lower transport apart. Okay, see these two notches? There's one here, one here. Okay, it's real simple. Don't break the plastic. You don't have to be rough with it. That's your best friend. That's the tool I have in my hand during the day 50% of the time. So now you come around here, and these notches are almost invisible. One here, one here. Okay, set it flat on the bench, get a good hold of it, and see, just like that. Now, because it's so dirty in there, so much dust, one of the rollers stuck to it. So we take these out, and as you can see just how really dirty they are. Okay, so we're going to clean all those up. Now, see on the front here, I'm going to try and zoom in so I can, whoops. Alright, the very front, it's got two tabs. Okay, one there, one there. You want to be very careful. This board is electronic, it's fragile. Pop one out, and then the second one. Okay, and this will come out like that. I'll tell you where the notch is that holds it is here. So when you put it back in, you kind of have to go down, find the spot like so, and then you pop it together. So we're going to take this out. One more section that has to come apart, which is the upper rollers. As you can see, these barely roll. Now, the notches to release these here and here, and these are tricky. Okay, if you haven't done it a lot of times, see those notches here? The way these go in is like this. Let me show it to you sideways. Those notches, once we of course put the roller back on, they have to go down and in like that. They will not fit straight down, okay, because the notches hit. So you have to go down and in. So we're going to show you more on that when we reassemble this, when it's all clean. So guys, there we have all our pieces for the wash tank. there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Obviously we don't submerge this because it has motors and gearboxes that are electric, and of course we have our tensioner assemblies. We're going to wash all the wheels, everything there. So guys, stand by. We're going to clean up everything and right back at you. Okay guys, everything is nice and clean and ready to be reassembled. I laid these apart for no other reason than to let you see what's included and what needs to go back together in your Series 2000 validator. Now, being as this is a 24 volt, the 110 volts, for the most part they're the same. They don't use the same board, obviously. The connections are a little bit different as far as where they plug in, but anyways guys, what we're going to do first is we are going to change the capacitor in the control board, and I want to show you. This is a little tough to do when you're one-handed. Alright, let's see if we have enough of a... Alright, so our control board, this is the capacitor that is normally in question. It's this one. These big guys here, they are... can't remember. What I was going to say is, yeah, they're 1800 microfarads by 50 volts. And you know what? I've had a bad one, but only because the top was swelled. Excuse me. Because the top was swelled. So I changed it, and every one of them I've ever checked, I have a capacitor checker, and this one's good. So, but these small guys, these are the ones, if you ever have a validator that's completely dead, look on the bottom here. I can tell that those are factory solder. In other words, nobody has changed this one. I'm going to be the first one to do it. So let me take just a moment. I've got my Heiko 301 solder removal tool hooked up. Let's see if I can do this and keeping it in the picture. Everybody says I need a vise, which they're right. My problem I'm having here is I can't pull. Alright, we got one side loose. Normally, if you've seen some of my other videos, I have this between my knees so I can hold it. Alright, we got both sides out. And I always look right by my thumb, guys. I always look through the holes in the light and make sure all the solder has become cleared. So, anyways, alright, we can shut our Heiko off. I stepped on it one day with stocking feet and it wasn't fun. Alright, so anyways, you see what we're up against. This is what we're changing. I'm going to check this in a minute and tell you how close to tolerance it was in. Now, here's another thing I should have shown you before I took it out. The stripe on the capacitors, that's the negative side, okay? Well, I know the negative side goes towards the edge of the board. I just know that because... And what I normally do on a board I'm unfamiliar with is I would just put a little felt pen mark on the negative side. Alright guys, so we're going to solder this guy up. We need, of course, a little flux. We need some solder. And I know the camera is pretty far away. Let's see how we can do this. If you can maybe see. So what I normally do, excuse me, A little flux on both sides. Just takes a drop or two. I tin my soldering iron, and that's it. Doesn't take much. Okay, believe it or not, it's done. Now what I do is I touch these. I just make sure they're solid, because if you didn't get solder to connect, they would feel they'd feel loose or soft. So anyways, now what we do, we got our little clippers, clip off what's extra. Alright, now we're going to put our board aside because we are not going to be ready for it until the last step. So we will put that in a safe spot. While we're at it, let's check the capacitor with my capacitor checker. Alright, this is a 1000 by, what I say, 16? Yeah, 1000 by 16. Now before you check them, you always short the leads together with a screwdriver, just so there's no power in there. And we want to see how close to our 1000 we still are. Okay, so negative, positive, it reads every bit of 1000. So this is perfectly good. However, we don't save used parts because they're 50 cents. That's why we change them. So let's just say that capacitor had 5 years left in life. Now that we have changed it, it's liable to have 15 years left. So anyways, guys, okay, here's our little cache of parts. Let's do the lower transport first. Whoops. Do the lower transport first. Okay, what we want to do is we want to take our little wheels, get two ready. We're going to use all 6. Now we get our keepers that go in the back side. And remember how I said these have to go in at an angle? Load those. You have to hold them because they're spring loaded, and I know I make it look easy, but the first few times you may shoot this thing across the kitchen table or floor. So anyways, those are done. Goes together pretty quickly, really. Be sure when you put those wheels in, you get both sides clicked in or they won't spin. Okay? 1, 2, 3. See how clean these little wheels came out after just some warm soapy water, and I put them in a little shaker cup. Now I have cleaned off the sensor lenses. This kind of goes in 45 degree. You get that corner in where the cord is, and make sure it's clipped in and the board will come forward. So that's all that's needed there. Our transport assembly is done, and all we'll need to do is plug it in when we reassemble. Now, here is our upper sensor assembly. Okay, it's going to go in this piece. Common breakage areas are these 2 studs, which is what holds it in. Guys over tighten them and they break one of these off. Well, what'll happen is it'll sit cockeyed and possibly not take the bills, not validate them. So just push this little rubber covered piece in. This is to keep any soda pops or water bottles or car wash spray assemblies out of it. It just pushes in. That's it. Okay, it's nice and clean. Set that aside. Now we want to put our small wheels on. Get our screwdriver back, and this goes pretty quick too. Just go around it. Be sure they are true, because there is a groove on the inside of these wheels. There is a groove to keep them centered and to keep them on. Okay, so you just go around it. I can always kind of feel, and that's it. Now what we'll do is we're going to put our stacker assembly back on our mainframe. Okay, the little angled end, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's got a little drop off. Anyways, that goes towards the bottom. Okay, and you just put it in like that. Now what we're going to do to make it easy to push our little pins on, I have a special socket I do that with, is we're going to lower this back down to its home position. Okay, just like that. And what I use is a number, I think it's a 5. Yeah, number 5. And what I do is, when I push our little white keepers on, I lay them up on top. And you'll hear them pop. They go pop, click, whatever you want to call it, and you know they're on. I've had some of these on and off several times. They seem to have a good life. If they ever become brittle, I have broken a couple taking them off because they were so brittle or so hard. So anyways, there's our main frame, our belts, and what we're ready for now, we take a spring, set it here. These are nice and clean. Set it down there. Okay, just like so. Now, this part, guys, if you have huge hands, and mine are probably approaching pretty big, this is a little bit more difficult. However, you just have to get the feel. I hold it like this. I take a shaft, and after you do it a few times, you'll see where it feels like it wants to fit. Okay, so now we have the main belt on, tensioner, and then now we have the small belt. So we grab one of these, once again take a shaft. I'm going to show you this up close when I snap it in there. Okay, that's how it goes. These are kind of opposite of each other. Right, left. Alright, let's do the other side. Spring. Tensioner. Come around here and grab our belt. I'm going to put a link to our belt kit down below, guys, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start including that capacitor with it. So you'll kind of get a free capacitor in case you want to change it. Now you need soldering skills. You don't necessarily have to have a $300 solder removal tool. I did it for years in the pinball days with those little blue handheld solder suckers that used to cost about $5. They really used to cost $5. I think now they're probably 10. So anyways, our mainframe assembly is complete. Okay, well, with the exception of the upper sensor. So what we're going to do now, I normally straighten this ribbon cable, and believe it or not, these things are pretty resilient. I mean, I get them and they're all crinkled up and they look terrible. Now, most importantly, guys, this one went in just like butter. This little rubber piece here, this is also something to keep moisture out. So you don't want to crunch that down below. You want to be sure on both sides that that little rubber piece is sticking up. Okay, now out of your screws you have left, it's 2 of the longer ones, and this is probably a bad habit to show you, but these are only, I think, 2 or 4 volt drivers. So what I do is I kind of have a feel, I've done a few of these, you don't want to. Okay, so now what I do is I can turn this manually. You don't want to leave the power on because you're going to break one of those studs. Now, obviously, you can do this by hand with just any old #1 screwdriver. So, all right, guys, this is next. We are going to put this in. Let me move my screws so they don't fall on the floor. Okay, you come in from the back side with this. You want to be sure your ribbon cable is sticking through. Now, here's a handy tool to have, which is my little probe with the hook on the end, because these wires don't always want to stick through. Okay, there's one. Oh, that's no wonder. Okay. Well, let's see. I don't normally give you that much trouble. Okay, now you start with this mainframe assembly down here because it's going to slide towards the top. Okay, these wires, the white and black, the red and black, they have a notch which they have to fit in. Okay, if you have it up here, you're going to have trouble. Okay, so now what you do is, hear that? Okay, that's as far as it goes. Now we take our other long screw, holding our ribbon cable out of the way. And that will keep it secure. Okay. Now these wires, they have their own little keepers, and they've got to go in there because they will be in the way otherwise. Okay. Now you put a wrap or two on these, just like so. And we are ready for our transport assembly and our board. One thing I haven't shown you yet on the board is you want to clean the sensors for the stacker motor and the transport. So get a Q-tip, get a little cleaner. That's what I use. A lot of guys ask. Get it at Home Depot or Lowe's. So put a little spray on there. Go in this, because that's what reads the position of the stacker and the transport. So just give it a little cleaning. I probably went overkill there, and you're good to go. So now, whoops, brand new towel that. All right, so let me see if I can do this. This is hard to do wrong-handed for me, for the simple fact that I'm going to have to kind of show you guys. What I normally do is I put the ribbon cable on first, but I'm going to do it on my lap because it's easier for me. This style just pushes in. Doesn't really have a keeper. And this one is being a little stubborn. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. Okay, now we have it. It's got kind of a blue stripe. I don't know if you can see that by my thumb there. Anyways, you want to make sure that stripe is somewhat straight across. Otherwise, one of those end pins could maybe not make connection. So you have one plug here. Your little bit longer plug goes here. Hey ladies, if any of our lady audience is watching, you know, you guys have smaller hands. This is really, it's not a lot to this except disassembly, reassembly before cleaning. Okay, so now our transport, I leave it loose. Some people plug it in. It has a plug of its own there. Plug wherever it goes. So then I lay my board down. This has to go in, or if you do, you'll be taking the board back out. Okay, now you can plug in your assembly. I'm going to get rid of this towel because it keeps catching. Now, if you're super confident, which I am, you can put all three of these screws in that hold the board. Okay, assuming we're not going to have to take it back apart. Don't over tighten. I sort of recommend if you're just doing one or two of these at home, just use a screwdriver. Alright, we'll put our upper section on. Let's get a bill box to test it with. We're going to plug it in. Put a couple bills in, and we're going to see how we did. We'll turn on our tester. You can plug it in, of course, to your vending machine. This is a tester that's hooked up. However, until I turn the tester to test, there's no power here, so never connect it with power on. All right. Do this so we can kind of see it. Now, I could tell that all those noises were correct. Okay, it did cycle, it did stack, and I have my flashing lights. So, I'm about 99% sure now this is perfect. Okay, took a 1, took a 5. I didn't actually even see if the 20s were turned on, but we're going to find out. Otherwise, I'll look at the dip switches. And there's a 20. Guys, you can run 100 bills through them if you want. MEIs are absolutely the finest validator built in this world. Not so much our country in the world. Anyways, see, we have a solid light on there. It means it's good to go. This guy, if you do it yourself, you can buy the belt kit. I think they're $16. We charge $58. We have not raised our price in 3 years, and we don't plan to. However, we have narrowed our service line on validators to only MEIs. We get so many in now, we don't want to waste our time with CoinCos. We don't believe in them. We don't think people should be spending money on CoinCos. So anyways, guys, hey, any tips, questions on any videos you'd like to see on certain components, we would be more than happy to oblige, and if possible, we'll do it. So for now, guys, don't forget to subscribe, and we appreciate all of our loyal visitors and viewers. For now, Doug at Doug's World Tour, vending and amusement channel, tips and trick video on MEIs. Out.